Lagoon Sohm has been present in the meta since day one, and it's still going strong. In this video, I'll teach you how to master this comp by going over the build, what items and augments to take, how to play the early, mid, and late game, and then I'll go over some in-depth positioning examples. The build is a little flexible as you have some late game flexibility, but not too much. The core units are Sohm, Nilah, Sylas, Malphite, Zoe, and then one additional Lagoon unit. Sohm is our main carry, while Nilah is our secondary carry. Sylas and Malphite give us Bruiser, and they are our main tanks. Zoe gives us 3 mage, and she can be replaced by any other mage until you find her. The last Lagoon unit is either Taliyah or Seraphine. The standard level 8 version of this comp looks like this. Here we add in Vladimir for 5 mages. If there is a lot of AP damage in the lobby, you can also play Seraphine plus Bard over Taliyah and Vladimir, but note that you lose out on a lot of damage by dropping down to 3 mages. I'll talk more about what you add in at level 9 and other ways to change your comp based on your augments later in the video. Sohm is our main carry, so we prioritize making items for her first. She has one core item, and that is blue buff. Because she has 40 mana, this item is essential as it allows her to cast more often, resulting in more damage. The only time you don't put blue buff on her is if you get the Prismatic Blue Battery 2 augment, but more on that later. The second item wants to be a damage item. This is preferably Morello, but you can also go for JG or Deathcap. Morello is great as she casts her spell quite frequently and hits a lot of different targets. Additionally, since the fights tend to be on the longer side, Morello synergizes really well with that. The third item wants to be another damage item. This can be JG, Deathcap, Archangels, Giant Slayer, or IE if you already have JG on her. Which you pick depends on the lobby. Giant Slayer is great against high health units and synergizes well with the raw AP you get from the Lagoon trait. JG also synergizes great with the extra AP you get from Lagoon, and Deathcap and Archangels are just overall great AP items. After making Sohm items, you want at least one Zizirot. Since our frontline is relatively weak compared to other comps, we need this item to help us stall. Prioritize making these over standard tank items. Zizirot can also be used effectively to counter assassins due to the taunt mechanic in the item. If you have the components, you can build multiple Zizirots, but don't build more than 3, because you want to fit them all in one unit, whether it be Sylas or Malphite. Our secondary carry is Nilah. She can do a lot of damage to the backline, but she needs at least one damage item to be a threat. An unitemized Nilah will do nothing, but an itemized Nilah can win you the game in a lot of cases. Here is a tier list of the best Nilah items. Don't prioritize making items for her over Sohm or Zizirots. She can take any leftovers, but usually, her items are standard AD items like Deathblade, BT, Hodge, IE, and Edge of Night. Note that Edge of Night as a standalone item is not S tier, but when combined with a damage item, it's definitely S tier. Also, if you have IE and Hodge as an item combination, that is S tier as well. If you get a spatula, you can make a Lagoon spat, which is amazing on Zoe, and you can get rid of Taliyah for another mage like Lilia or replace Malphite for Jax, who is much better in the late game. The other option is Mage Spat. It allows you to play Mage Zyra, which is really strong. She gives you a lot of CC, and allows you to fit into Whispers into the comp, which really helps out your Sohm and Nilah. Other strong Mage Spat users are Yasuo, Hecarim, Jace, Bard, and Soraka. The best augments to take for this comp are Best Friends, Celestial Blessing, Cybernetic Uplink, Cybernetic Shell, Exiles, Luden's Echo, Mage Heart or Emblem, Pandora's Bench, Second Wind, Stand United, Thrill of the Hunt, Ancient Archives, Gadget Expert, Jeweled Lotus, Lagoon Heart or Emblem, Portable Forge, and Blue Battery 2. I mentioned a lot of augments there, and the best ones out of those are Luden's Echo, Second Wind, Thrill of the Hunt, Jeweled Lotus, Mage Heart or Emblem, and especially Blue Battery 2. Note that Blue Battery 2 replaces blue buff on your Sohm. However, you do not want to take Blue Battery 1, because it only sets your mana to 10, and that's not going to be enough. If all that info was a lot to take in, then check out the cheat sheet for this comp. It's available for patrons and YouTube members. Here is the quirky cheat sheet from last set, so you know what to expect for the Lagoon Sohm cheat sheet that is available right now. The carousel priority for this comp is Rod, Tier, Belt, and Chain. This comp is only playable if you find 3 Lagoon before stage 2-3, because you want to start stacking the Lagoon trade as soon as possible. This is the best Lagoon opener, with Kai'Sa as the item carrier for Sohm. However, any 3 Lagoon units can work. On level 4 you add in either a Bruiser, Guardian, or Dragonmancer unit. If you couldn't find 3 Lagoon, then some other openers that also work are 3 Astral Lux carry, or Jade Dragonmancers with Karma carry. Some good items to make in the early game are Morello, Zizirot, JG, BT, Deathblade, Stoneplate, and Deathcap. Avoid making Sunfire at this stage of the game, because this comp wants Morello, and the burn effect of the 2 items don't stack. However, if you can't find Morello, you will need some form of healing reduction in the late game. We always hold Talia and Malphite if we're not playing them in the early game because they are crucial to our final comp. If you have enough gold, then always pre-level to 4 on 1-4 to have a higher chance of seeing Lagoon units on stage 2-1. From there, your early game strategy will depend a lot on how good your opener is. In some games you play for a loss streak, and in some games you play for a win streak. And if you want to learn more about how to play the early game, then check out my guide where I go in depth on that subject. After the Krugs round, you should have more direction towards a comp. The general requirements to play Lagoon Sohm is to have at least one tier for blue buff, and one component for a damage item. You also need to have 3 Lagoon active as mentioned earlier. During the mid game, you want to keep stacking up the Lagoon trait. You always want to hold Sohm and Nyla if you're not playing them, and you always hold the other units as well if you don't lose eco for holding them. If you are weak in the mid game, lose streaking, or don't have Kai'Sa 2, you should roll at 6 or 7 to stabilize. If you roll at level 6, it should be on stage 3-2. Here you're looking to find Kai'Sa 2-star and play either a 4 Dragonmancer comp, 6 Lagoon, 3 Astral, or if the Shimmer Scale item is good, then you can go for 3 Shimmer Scale as well. If you have Morello on Kai'Sa, she should be positioned in the middle of the last row. In any other case, you position her in the corners. If you have to roll at level 7 instead, you can do this on either stage 3-5 or 4-1. Which you pick depends on how much HP and gold you have. When rolling at level 7, you want to aim for a board like this. With this comp, it's always better to roll at level 6 though, because a 2-star Kai'Sa and an upgraded frontline will stabilize you way harder than a 1-star Sohm with 6 Lagoon. During the mid game, it's also important to scout. This is so we can see how many other people are playing Lagoon. This comp can support 2 players at max, so if you see more than that going for it, then consider pivoting into another comp like Dragonmancer Kai'Sa or Seraphine Graves. On stage 4-1, you want to be level 7, and from here you have 2 different options. You can either roll at level 7, or you can go for a fast 8. For this comp, it's better to roll at level 8 because we want to 2-star both Sohm and Nyla, and to find a legendary unit in Zoe. The games where you roll at level 7 is when you're 70 to 60 HP or lower, if you're lost streaking, you cannot go level 8 on stage 4-2 next turn, or if a lot of other players are rolling down here as well. When rolling down at level 7 on 4-1, it's very similar to rolling down on 3-5. You want to stabilize off of this board. The goal from there is to go level 8 on 5-1 and then roll for the rest of your comp there, so try not to roll below 10 to 20 gold as we need the money to go level 8 later in the game. Ideally you can go level 8 on 4-2, but at the latest you should go in on stage 5-1. Here you want to end up with a board like this at level 8. Another variation is this. If you have +1 mage, you should look to play this, and if you get a Lagoon emblem, your board should look like this. Once you hit your board at level 8, you have 2 options from there. The first is to roll for 3-star Sohm or Nyla at level 8. With Lagoons, this is the preferred strategy, because you get a lot of gold, champions, and even a duplicator from the Lagoon traits. The other option is to push level 9. You go for this if you have all your non-legendary units 2-starred, or you didn't find at least 6 Sohms or Nylas throughout your level 8 rolldown. Generally, I don't recommend going level 9 with this build, because we don't have anything great to add in. But if you decide to go level 9, you can either add in Bard, Soraka, Yasuo, or you can change up your comp to fit in Terra, or if you have Mage Emblem, you can play 7 mages at level 9. General positioning with this comp looks like this. We want to have Sohm in the hex next to one of the corners. Zoe goes in the corner hex because her tornado can boost everybody's attack speed, and it's important for her to always buff Sohm as well. Silas wants to go in the middle hex in the front row to mono-reave as many units as possible. Nyla should be positioned on the same side as the enemy carry. Now let's move on to some in-depth positioning examples. Against the first guy, the big threat is Shyvana and Ao Shin. We want to split up our backline so that Shyvana doesn't land on our Sohm. We want Nyla to jump on the Ao Shin. We want Silas in the middle to mono-rave Terra, Xiuyu, and Shyvana. Against the second guy, the big threat is Deja. Sohm and Zoe are positioned on the same side as Deja to avoid her spell. We're clumping our frontline to make Deja target them with her spell. Malphite is positioned to tank the bite from Nunu. Silas mono-raves the whole frontline. Nyla jumps on the backline, gets a spell reset on Twitch, then focuses down the Deja. Against the third guy, the big threats are Xiuyu and Siphon. Sohm and Zoe are positioned as far away from the Xiuyu as possible. Silas is positioned to mono-rave the Siphon, Pantheon, and Jace. Vlad is positioned to bait out the Siphon ult. Nyla jumps on the Xiuyu to start taking him down. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want cheat sheets for any of my comp guides, they're available for YouTube members and patrons, and links to those are down in the description. And if you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. We got over 9,000 other players there who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord server as well. So take care and see you in the next video.